Welcome to Westminster. My name is Stephen Common. I will be your worship partner today, and I want to welcome you all. The chalice is a symbol of our faith, and our chalice lighting marks the beginning of our worship service. I will light mine and share our reading. Then, if you are online, I invite you to use the chat to post the name of the street where the chalice was lit, if you have one. Our chalice lighting is adapted from Rebecca Parker. Even when our hearts are broken by our own failure or the failure of others cutting into our own lives, even when we have done all we can and life is still broken, there is a universal love that has never broken faith with us or will. We light this chalice this morning as a reminder of that unbroken love.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Easter. My name is Quaadgras. I'm the minister here, and I also want to welcome all of you online and here in person for this Sunday in April, where we celebrate the theme of awakening. And today we talk about awakening out of brokenness and into beauty. Let us deepen into worship with these words. There is a brokenness out of which comes the unbroken, a shatteredness out of which arises the unshatterable. There is a sorrow beyond all grief, which leads to joy, and a fragility out of whose depth emerges strength. We come together on this day that Christians observe as Easter. The biblical scholar Marcus Borg said, paradoxically, Easter never happened. Easter always happens. And we come in the midst of a time that Jewish people observe as Passover, the story of a people freed from the brokenness of slavery, finding new wholeness in a land of promise. So today we come into this space, whether we identify as Christian or Jewish, theist or atheist, agnostic or pagan. We come into this space and celebrate together the ways the seasons of spring and Easter and Passover remind us that wholeness can bloom from brokenness. So bring your brokenness this morning. Know that it will be held in love. And let us celebrate. Please rise in body or in spirit with your mask on if you're here in person for our opening hymn, number 203. You have hymnals, oh my goodness. I had tears in my eyes when I was imagining this moment. It's number 203, all creatures of the earth and sky. We will sing the first three verses, and the lyrics will be in the chat as well.
Please remain standing as we say together our unison affirmation found in your order of service or in
chalice. Love is the spirit of this church, and service our mission. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and help one another. Please be seated. Our time for all ages this morning is our Director of Religious Education, Jessica Hess, and in a moment I will flip the switch so that we can see her on the screen.
Hi, I'm Jessica Hess, Director of Religious Education. This morning we're talking about brokenness, and it really is that time of year to consider lots of different things that may be broken and then become whole again. So what do I mean by that? Well, I have this basket here, an Easter basket, right? With eggs inside. Colored eggs. This is a symbol that we know a lot about. And when we break them open, what do we find? Sometimes it's candy. My dad used to ask the Easter Bunny to leave quarters in ours. So it depends, but today we're going to talk about a few things that you can find inside a broken egg. First is the walnut. A walnut is very hard on the outside, and it takes a lot to break it open. But once inside, a miraculous thing is there, is the actual walnut inside of that hard exterior crust. And so that shell, once it's broken, inside is something that can bring new life, really. You know, it's been almost a month now that we've been celebrating spring. Flowers are blooming, daffodils, hyacinths, they're all coming from the earth. They've been sleeping for a long time. And so seeds and things like walnuts can bring new life. We can eat the walnut and find sustenance there, or it can actually grow a brand new tree, which is really an amazing thing to think about, isn't it? You know, this time of year, pagans across the world many, many years ago and still today celebrate rituals and honor this new life that spring brings forth. And some people think that is where the origin of those Easter eggs and bunnies come from. They've been symbols of new life for a very, very long time. Secondly, we have another egg. This egg is a very ancient egg as well and celebrates the coming out of brokenness of slavery in Egypt many years ago. Jews all around the world celebrate Passover at this time of year. And did you know that on the Seder plate, there are lots of different foods to represent different parts of the celebration? There's often a hard-boiled egg there. It's usually roasted in the oven, and sometimes it gets cracked from that process. But an egg, in all of its roundness, it alludes to that cycle of rebirth and renewal. Thirdly, we have another egg. Inside, we have the image of Jesus on the cross. He was a man that we all agree lived a very long time ago, who was a teacher who taught about the power of love and how to care for poor and lonely and sick people. And he wanted a world that was based on those values instead of the values of the time, which were of money and power. The people who were in power at that time, they didn't like his message. So they put him to death on a cross. And as you imagine, his friends and the people who followed him as their leader, they were broken by this and saddened and scared. And you know what they did? They stayed together and they continued to tell stories about Jesus. You'll find many of them in the Bible today. Some people even believe that he came back from the dead after he was killed. Some people don't believe that. But we can all agree that he was a great teacher. And lastly, we have this fabulous egg. If we break it open, we see lots of pieces of broken glass that don't seem to represent much. But they might represent something to you. And I wonder if you could take a moment to think about something that you feel is broken, or something that upsets you in your life currently, or something that you've lost. And later at the end of service, you'll be able to put some broken pieces that are at the front of the sanctuary into a mosaic to make something more beautiful out of the hurt and the sadness of the last several months and years. So keep that in mind when you think of things that are seemingly broken. They can always come back together to create something new and bring new life into the world. Blessed be.
If you did not receive a small piece, a shard of tile when you walked in, this would be the moment for Sandy to did not receive one. So Sandy, if you would just We're going to still hold on to that for a bit as the service continues, but I just want to make sure that everyone has that broken piece of tile with you. All right. And now we have our time of joys and sorrows. Let us gather our hearts and minds in a spirit of prayer or meditation. Spirit that goes by many names and is beyond naming, be with us this morning in all that we carry. Joys and sorrows, hopes and doubts, accomplishments and failures. Be with us as we open our hearts to the joys of spring and Passover and Easter and hope. Spirit of life, help us to welcome the blooming of spring into our lives, to welcome new beginnings and new risks and new unknowns. Spirit of compassion, be with us in the brokenness we witness that comes with everyday living. Help us to be gentle with ourselves and others. Help us to heal. Help us to forgive. And help us to love each other more deeply. Spirit of hope, help us know that freedom is possible and that we can be released from the bondage of old beliefs and come to new perspectives and new ways of looking at the world. Spirit of wholeness, be with us as we witness the brokenness in the world. We remember those places in the world where there is violence. Help us roll back the stones of fear and hatred and indifference and welcome a new world of peace. Spirit of community, be with us this morning as we worship together in honor of stories of freedom and rebirth and celebrate renewed life. May it be so. Amen. Let us join together for our song and response, Spirit of Life. It is, I believe, 123 in your hymnal. You may remain seated for this hymn. Please wear your mask as we,
if you choose to sing. Thank you.
Our April recipient Share the Plate is Doctors Without Borders. Doctors Without Borders provides impartial medical relief to the victims of war, disease, and natural or man-made disaster, without regard to race, religion, or political affiliation. The organization provides medical aid is needed most, independent, neutral, and impartial. The other half of the offering goes to support all the other good work of this community. You can donate using the link that is now being put in the chat. If you are here in person, we ask that you use your cell phone to click on the donate button on the Westminster website, or you can leave your offering in the box at the table after the service. The offering will now be given and received with gratitude.
Try that again. This is our agreement will be displayed momentarily.
There is a brokenness, a shatteredness, there is a sorrow beyond all grief, and a fragility out of whose depths spirit of life, so evident in this season of rebirth and resurrection, and make all our broken pieces whole in community. Give us the shape of a communal beauty. Bring our brokenness, where we will be called to hold one another in love. Love is always possible. Thank you.
These three stories about brokenness and the creation of something new, the people of Israel, broken by slavery, wandered in the desert for years. and in that process reformed themselves into a new people before finally entering the promised land. The people of Judea, thousands of years later, lost their beloved leader and, broken by that loss, nevertheless gathered themselves together and made something new. New ideas, new hopes, new visions for their lives. And there's the pagan story of renewal, from the decay of fall and winter, from the brokenness of all that dark and cold comes spring with its flowers and its trees and blooming branches and baby bunnies and baby chicks and new color and new hope, and it's everywhere. It's gorgeous. One thing these three stories have in common is acknowledgement of brokenness. Hard seasons come. Loss happens. Living things die. And so do people. That's hard for us. The other thing these stories have in common, though, is this new hope and this idea that new life can emerge even when things appeared completely hopeless, lifeless. These spiritual stories have lessons for us. One of them is that when things feel hopeless, we can't know what might still be possible. Another is that it can take a little time to move from brokenness to something new. It took 40 years for those broken Israelites to prepare themselves internally and in community for something new in the promised land. And another lesson is that the first step in moving from brokenness to something beautiful is often acceptance of what already is. That can seem and feel counterintuitive. After all, when something is broken, it hurts. We want to fix it as quickly as possible. And while we can fix a lot of things, we can fix the broken toy, we can fix the broken door, the broken roof, the broken boiler, our feelings don't fix so easily or so quickly. And in fact, when we try to jump from broken to whole in our feelings, it's often counterproductive. It can be really good to begin by just seeing things as they are. Like Jesus did before he died. He saw the world just as it was, with all its brokenness, its broken people, even the ones who betrayed him and wished him nothing but harm. He accepted it all. And one of the special things people talk about, one of the special qualities that they talk about Jesus having, was that his heart had grown so big, he had empathy for all of it. He was able to hold it all. And his followers, after his death, they tried to learn from that acceptance, and they tried to teach others the same, to see the world exactly as it is and love it anyway. Because when you love something, even when it's broken, you can begin to see possibilities you couldn't see before. When you open your heart wide, a grace can come in that guides you and maybe even begins to change you. And those changes can draw other people in too. So those are ancient stories, but what about today? There's an artist living in our day and age. Her name is Lily Yeh, who saw brokenness around her and had a big enough heart that she moved towards it, not to fix it, but to accept it and see what beauty might emerge. Lily Ye, she loved a struggling neighborhood in Philadelphia that was plagued by poverty and violence. And I can't show you the slides without showing you my notes. She took a stick and drew around her. This large-hearted, small Chinese American woman began to build a mosaic out of broken bottles and broken windows and stones and bricks inside that circle. And before long, people around her saw her doing this, and they asked her what she was doing, and they entered her circle and began with her to start creating something more beautiful. They began with just that circle she had drawn, and before long, they change more and more of those blocks until 260 square blocks of Philadelphia became an arts district. It was out of my own brokenness and the brokenness of others that I find healing and joy and possibility, she said. From one circle to 260 blocks of a neighborhood that was struggling. Here's another story from our day and age after we see more of these beautiful slides. This one is set in Rwanda. That same artist, Lily Ye, went there along with others because the people in this town had witnessed some very difficult things. The tribes that lived in that village were the Hutu and the Tutsi. It is a painful history. Many of their loved ones had died, just like Jesus did many years ago, killed for no good reason. And the people who were left behind were grieving and in pain, as you might imagine, and have been for years. So their dream and their hope was to create a memorial for their loved ones, some way to process their grief and to create something new. So they invited Lily Ye to come and help them and take brokenness around them and create something beautiful to honor those people who they loved and to help them work with their emotions and their sadness and create something to honor them. Their loved ones did not rise from the dead, but their memory did. Their memory was honored and respected, and they created this word, Twibuk, which means we remember, and began a path of healing and wholeness. And I think, of course, of the brokenness that we witness day in and day out in Ukraine, the broken glass and the broken walls and the broken buildings and the broken people. So much suffering there. And it reminds us of the suffering all over the world. And we cannot leap to fix it, no matter how much we would like to. But what we can do is we can hold those people in our hearts. We can acknowledge what is happening. And we can do something to help. We can support organizations that are helping. And we can know that as we accept the reality that over time, something beautiful may yet emerge as we bring our hearts to what is hurting. The author, Terry Tempest writes, "A mosaic is a conversation between what is broken." Of course, the broken pieces are sharp. If you have your broken piece that you were given at the beginning or the middle of the service, you can notice the edges of those pieces. They can cut, they can hurt. But we can also put them together and make something whole and beautiful. We can be intentional about doing that. And we're going to be intentional about doing that today. So we have here 2 mosaic bases that have poured concrete, and I'm going to move one from this table to this table. And as we anticipate creating these mosaics together, I invite you to hold that broken piece and to think about, what is it for you that feels broken today? For me, as I thought about it, I imagined, the brokenness of the body. For me, my broken relationship with food came to my mind, which is on the one hand broken, on the other hand held in a 12-step program in a spiritual community. And for you, that brokenness may be a brokenness of relationship, maybe a betrayal or a loss or something someone did that hurt you or you hurt them. And so there's a brokenness there that may not be repairable exactly, but can be held in a larger wholeness. Or maybe for you, it's health. It's a health issue, something that you're struggling with. Your body is not doing what you want it to do. And so there's that brokenness, but there is a larger love that still holds all of us in our bodies. Or there's a loss. Maybe you've lost someone you love or an animal that you love. That too can't be fixed, but it can be held. And so with all of these in mind, whatever it is for you that is broken today, to imbue your peace with that. And I invite you, as you feel ready, to come forward. And if you're at home, maybe you have a shard or maybe just a torn piece of paper, or maybe you just get to do it in your mind and imagine coming forward. If you're at home, we will invite you, if you do have a piece of something you'd like to contribute to the mosaic, we invite you to come sometime between today and Tuesday, and we will include your piece in the mosaic as well. If you are here, Nonetta is going to begin playing in a moment, and when you feel ready, I invite you to take your piece of brokenness and come place it on the mosaic as part of seeing and witnessing how we are held in community. We are alone in our brokenness, we are together. And I invite you, as you come up, to simply allow the flow and the call of spirit to place your piece. Don't need to think about it, just place the piece in conversation with the others. And as Nonetta begins to play, I invite you forward.
And I invite you to put your mask on as well as we move around the space to make it more comfortable for all of us. Thank you. I don't know if you at home were able to see anything of the mosaic, but I'll try. We'll put pictures in the e-blast so you can see it as well. Let us rise in body or in spirit as we sing our closing hymn, number 61, Lo, the Earth Awakes Again. Please wear your mask if you are going to be singing. Please remain standing for our closing words. Catholic priest Richard Rohr writes, "We tend to focus on fixing things, on the ascent, on when things will get better. But spiritual texts so often point us to the opposite, to the wilderness and the brokenness and the loss. It's part of life. But trust the down, accept the down," he writes, "and the Spirit of God, the Spirit of life, the Spirit of love will take care of the up." This was supposed to change everything, he concludes, and I trust it still will. Amen. Go in peace. Happy Easter. Happy Passover. Let us join for our closing song.